This episode of the Ear Scouts podcast is all about lightning lanes. We're answering your latest lightning lane questions from over on YouTube and talking about all the huge Disney parks news that just got announced. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from our makeshift studio here in Celebration, Florida. Welcome to episode 2 of the Ear Scouts podcast, where we gather around the virtual campfire to talk about Disney World and Disney parks around the world. I'm here with my partner in crime, the other half of Ear Scouts, Eric. Hi-ho, Eric.
Hi-ho, everyone.
So Eric is going to be keeping up with the live chat over on Patreon. If you'd like to join us live as we record each episode and gain access to our exclusive Patreon after party, head on over to patreon.com/Ear Scouts. I'm also here with Jessica, who is one of our fabulous Ear Scouts moderators and the host of the scrapbooking channel, Jessica Scraps, over at YouTube. Hi-ho, Jessica.
Hi-ho from Connecticut.
Also with us is Quizmaster Craig, Ear Scouts moderator extraordinaire and our resident Disney World trivia whiz. Hi-ho, Craig.
Hi-ho, everyone, from northern Indiana, where it went down to 60 degrees today, and I could not be happier.
I'm so jealous of 60 degrees.
We didn't have 60 degrees in Connecticut.
Well, we have so many things to talk about in our campfire chat this week, Craig. So why don't you kick us off? What is the first thing on your mind this week?
We got so much news dropped. They've given us a little more news about the new Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. We got some new concept art. There's going to be a new character. Supposedly is Scooter's uncle named JP Gross. We might have some animatronics. We might have a Scooter animatronic and some penguins.
It looked definitely like Scooter's going to be an animatronic, and I think someone confirmed that somewhere, that Scooter and the penguins are animatronics.
Awesome. Yeah, and I noticed like with the pre-show, they reversed where you're standing as part of the audience, because right now we're like in the booth looking at the musicians, whereas in the old Rock and Roller Coaster with Aerosmith, we were in the studio watching the booth.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I think it'd be a lot more fun and makes more sense.
I can't wait to see what they do on the coaster itself, because I feel like the kind of cut out black light stuff that's in there now, to me, it felt a little, I don't know,
Dated.
underwhelming. Yeah,
Mhm.
it just,
Oh, totally. And if you've ever seen the how they upgraded the Rock and Roller Coaster in Disneyland Paris, or
Yes.
rather the Studios Park, but with projections and projection mapping and screens and everything, I'm hoping for something like that. However, I did notice this little tidbit in the Disney release, and it said, iconic scenery and landmarks of Tinseltown will feature a Muppet twist. It kind of says to me they're not changing the basics of the ride.
still looking like 2026.
Yeah, 2026.
Yeah, they're not closing it till the beginning of 2026, and it's still opening in 2026, which leads to not a lot of updates.
Yeah. Well, we do have some news, though, Jessica, of something that is going to be opening before 2026.
We do. We finally got the opening date for Zootopia Better Together. It's going to be replacing the Bugs Life show in the Tree of Life. It will be November 7th. And it's going to be opening with, the most important part is Judy and Nick will be there. Now, those of you that have followed along with Ear Scouts for a while know that is my one thing I asked for, was Judy and Nick in the park. I was like, we can have the 4D show. I'm very excited, but you got to give me Judy and Nick in the park. And they've said Judy and Nick will be in the parks doing meet and greets. I'm excited about this. It looks like there's brand new music. All the cast from the movies are going to be there. Appears like they'll have an animatronic, I assume, where the old, I can't remember his name.
Hopper.
Hopper, yeah. Hopper was. It looks like they're going to have a drone show with mice inside the theater. So I assume that's going to be coming from the ground. Or from the ceiling to the ground. So it looks like there's going to be some really cool things. It's also very 3D, vibrant colors. It reminds me of the 80s a lot, all the artwork. So I think it's going to be fun.
Do we know, is Shakira involved? Is there going to be
Yeah,
some
it's her
Shakira?
song. Shakira's song will be on there too. So at the very least, you'll have the one Shakira song.
Well, I'm going to add the announcement that I am most excited about that we got this week is that Big Thunder Mountain. We all know it's getting refurbished. It's getting a new track. And they said that they were going to add some magic to the attraction. Well, we found out what some of that magic is. So you know how when you first start out, you're in that cavern. And now there's going to be all these cool effects where the cavern is going to start out as kind of like a rainbow cavern. There's going to be lots of color on the stalactites and stalagmites. And then there's going to be, is it explosion or like a clap of thunder or something? I guess thunder. It makes sense. It's thunder. It's Big Thunder Mountain. And then the whole vibe shifts for the beginning of the ride and everything kind of goes blood red. And then there's these terrifying bats that appear. So I don't know. I'm very excited about the new intro to the ride. That's going to be kind of your first experience. And then Disney has promised that there are going to be more additions made. If you've been to pretty much any of the other Big Thunder Mountains, the one that first comes to mind is one in Anaheim. They have a really cool explosion effect that happens on one of those interior lift hills. And you can see it's always been there at the Disney World version, that lift hill that's inside the cavern. And you could see where they would easily add that effect of, it's almost like a fuse burning and leading up to the dynamite that's above your head as you go out through it. And then there's a big explosion. And in fact, Disney kind of teased that there's going to be some explosive elements coming. So I think that's what it's going to be. But I'm hoping it's going to be an even more exciting version of that effect because, it's been a long time since they've added that one in Anaheim. So technology's improved and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with it. But the one thing that I am most hoping that they don't do is make the ride too smooth because they've replaced the track. That's probably going to mean a somewhat smoother ride, but I don't know if you guys know this, but it has been reported in medical journals that if you sit in the back seat of Big Thunder Mountain, it can actually help you pass a kidney stone. It is that much of a rough and tumble ride. And I actually, I used to have, I've had kidney stones before. And when I moved to Orlando, never had a kidney stone until they shut down Big Thunder Mountain. And I blame not being able to ride Big Thunder Mountain. It's, so I can't wait for it to come back. And I hope that they keep it sufficiently rumbly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not so much the rumbly, but just the basic design of Big Thunder where you're getting G-forces so quickly and slamming up and down. And I don't think that's going to change. So I think we're good on the kidney stone front.
At the pace that they're working on that attraction, I really hope that they are going to open it earlier than they thought.
How long has it been down for?
It's been down for quite some time, but I will say this is some random dude that I ran into in Frontierland claimed that he was friends with one of the Imagineers working on Big Thunder and that we might be surprised by the announcement of the opening date. So do with that what you will. Random dude might be just completely making things up. But he did say that. And when you look at it, it looks like it's getting pretty close. It looks like maybe at the very least, we can expect it to open very early 2026. But
I miss the noise. I miss the noise that it makes. I think that part of the park is missing something without that noise. I mean, I will say that. Yeah. I'm just excited about having the ride back. Even if they just slap some paint on it, unlike Rock and Roller Coaster, we need that. We need it back. In my opinion, we just need it back.
So, Jessica, not only are you our resident Judy Hopps fan, I feel like you're also, I love Star Wars. I'm not going to say I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I feel like you're probably the biggest Star Wars fan. And there was a piece of Star Wars news that came out.
There was a piece of Star Wars news, and it kind of got buried, I think, in all of the other announcements. For those of you that remember, I believe last year, they updated Star Tours to include some alternate shots. So you can now go to different places. And one of the things that we kept thinking is, wouldn't that be great if They did that for Smuggler's Run. Well, guess what's happening? Now, when you do the Millennium Falcon, you're going to be able to go to more than just the one place. It's going to be different endings. And even better than this is the engineer is now going to actually have a job to do. So the engineer is going to control where you go. Apparently, there's going to be a choice, and the engineer is going to choose which mission you take. There's going to be an option to talk to the Mandalorian, to talk to Grogu. They said you'll even get to talk to Chewie more. So I think it'll be interesting, a little more interactive. Now, I love Honda Anaka, so I don't want to lose that part of it, but it really be cool to have different options. If you have ridden the ride, and I've probably ridden Millennium Falcon as much as you've ridden, if you've ridden Big Thunder, but you get to the point where you know what's coming. I know when we're going to crash and when we're going to have this and when we're going to get so it'll be great to make that ride even more rideable and exciting.
The thing I'm interested about what you said, though, because I don't think I caught this before. So it's the engineer that's going to get to choose.
Yeah, they're giving the engineer the ability to choose where you go.
What's funny is that if you don't have a party of 6, there's a very good chance that your engineer is going to be someone from the single rider line. So I think that's very interesting that in a lot of cases, single rider is going to get to pick what your adventure is. Craig, I think you had some news to share about additions to another space-themed ride.
Yes, back to the Magic Kingdom. We've got Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. We're getting new blasters. They're going to be handheld. They're not going to be stuck to the ride vehicle itself, so you'll be able to aim a lot better. We're getting light-up targets. Supposedly, everyone has their own color as well on their blasters. So when you hit a target, if it lights up your color, you know that was you. I cannot be more thrilled. I don't think I've ever made it out of whatever the third level is. I don't know, if it's a space case or whatever.
Well, but now the score is unlimited, right? Like it's not gonna end at 99999.
Yeah, yep, and it's going to keep going. But yeah, I'm really excited about that.
I do want to add, while we're talking about all these announcements, that the one thing that I thought was really weird is that this coming weekend is Destination D23. It is a big Disney fan event. Since D23 Expo only happens every other year, Destination D23 is the smaller event that happens in the years in between. And it's weird to me that they're announcing all this stuff just days before this fan event, where they would normally, I feel like, have a park panel and they would announce all this stuff, but they put out the schedule and there's no park panel. They did come back and say, because everybody was like, hey, where's the park panel, that there will be some parks announcements. So there will be some park stuff to come out of the Destination D23 event. But it's just weird to me that this stuff didn't get included at that event, where it seems like it would have generated a lot more excitement. Well, Jessica, I think you wanted to share with us, you took a look at some of the food and wine menus.
Yeah, so just real quick, and I know I'm assuming you'll do a video and we can talk about that, but I wanted to go over just a few of the things that are new and a few of the things that are staying that are important that you guys can remember. It starts this weekend, and it's important to note there are 2 booths that will not open with the festival. So and this is a new booth by Guardians of the Galaxy, Goizas of the Galaxy. Looks like they have some really cool dumplings. Dumplings. Did you hear my South came out right there? Dumplings and Pinot Gris, which is really exciting to keep with the food and wine. But the menu looks amazing, and it doesn't open until September 28th. So if you thought you were going to go get buffalo-style chicken dumplings, you're going to need to wait and go September 28th. The other booth that does not open until September 28th is Coastal Eats. It was there last year. They've got a new seafood pot pie that looks good if you like seafood. It doesn't look as exciting as the dumplings at the other place, but that one also doesn't open until the 28th.
I'm just devastated that
I
I won't
knew
be
you
able to
would
get
be.
seafood at the beginning of the
I will
festival.
do that one and review it for the podcast for you, just to take one for the team, because it does look good to me. A couple of other changes I did want to talk through were Morocco. So Tangerine Cafe, for as long as I can remember, has had kebabs. That's what they've had.
Yep.
They are changing it up this time. They're changing
What?
it up. I know. I'm super excited. So they're actually going to have a wrap. So they'll have a chicken and a lamb wrap. So a little bit different. It looks really cool on the menu. The pictures they put out, they're keeping the bread, actually the stone baked bread, which is one of my favorite things at any of the festivals. And then most importantly, and I know what everybody cares about, the pickle milkshake is returning. So the
wow.
pickle milkshake is returning. We really think that that's going to need to be something that everyone tries. I think we should maybe put a poll together. How many times should Rob drink the pickle milkshake? I don't know. So that's coming back.
I feel strongly that once is enough on the pickle milkshake.
I also feel strongly that once is enough, but it is returning for some reason. And in all seriousness, my favorite thing I've had from a dessert standpoint, the carrot cake is actually coming back. So for those of you that went last year and you had the carrot cake at the milled and mulled menu, that is coming back. But that's a big picture. The big thing I want people to realize is those September 28th dates, because a lot of people go and they don't realize there's 2 booths that aren't open yet. So
I have no idea how we're going to cover food and wine this year, because for some reason Disney decided to make Destination D23 the same weekend as opening weekend for food and wine. So it's difficult to be at 2 places at once. I'm sure there's going to be some folks who'll be working on videos while we're at D23, but we will not be amongst those folks. So I don't know when we're going to get our food and wine video out. The other thing is, for the last several years, we've had this thing where we eat every single food item at every booth and we review all the food, and we just can't do it anymore. Especially when, we're going to have Destination D23 at the same time. It takes us days. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 straight days of going to Epcot and eating. And this is going to sound crazy because, before I had a channel and I would watch these channels, I'd be like, oh, how wonderful is it that they get to go and eat all this amazing food. And it is wonderful unless you try to eat all of it, because then it becomes less wonderful to eat that much food in a short period of time. So we're going to change how we do this. We're kind of forced to because of Disney's scheduling. But I think maybe we'll just do a series of smaller videos and kind of focus on, maybe we'll do the fromage montage for the first videos, something that's kind of doable in a short amount of time. And let us know, in the comments of the videos or here on Patreon, what you'd like to see us do for food and wine this year, since we can't do it the way that we normally do it. Eric has, I think there's something from the chat about food and wine.
Yeah, some people are recommending that we might be able to do just a best of the items that we can find. Or like another person is just mentioning that we might try just the new items.
Yeah. So I love the idea of a best of, but I'm such a perfectionist that I was like, how can I say this is the best if I haven't tried every single thing that there is at the festival? So it's I think maybe, though, we could definitely do the new items. I feel like that's definitely a doable thing. So that's actually the perfect segue to Ear Scouts news. We have our brand new Not So Scary video out. It's all about characters. If you're excited to meet a bunch of characters at Not So Scary, you want to check out that video. But the thing I wanted to talk about here on the podcast, 2 things. Number one, on our last podcast, we were asking whether those new treat trails that Disney was touting in Storybook Circus, if they were going to have characters on them the way that they do in Anaheim, where they have treat trails for Oogie Boogie Bash. I am sad to report that there were no characters on the treat trails in Storybook Circus, but there are some characters at trick-or-treat stations in Fantasyland. We ran into Donald in PhilharMagic. And as last year, as we mentioned on the last podcast, you can see I think it's the Evil Queen and Maleficent at the Princess Fairy Tale Hall trick-or-treat station. So they're back. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is, I think, more exciting, and I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this. We were there on the second night. We didn't go the first night this year. We went the second night, and it was back to the old crowd level that I remember from the first times that we went to Not So Scary, which was, I think, like 2020, right when it came back after COVID, was the first time we went. And the crowd capacity was much lower. And I felt like with each successive year, it felt like they were selling more tickets and it was getting more crowded. And it really was just becoming unmanageable because there were so many people at the event. And I talked to so many people because I was like, is it just me or does everyone feel this way? And everyone agreed. They were like, the crowd level seemed much lower this year. So I think what happened, Disney did increase the prices. Everyone made note of that. There was a pretty substantial increase this year. And the other thing that happened was a lot of parties sold out faster than they have in previous years. And I think what was happening, even though Disney didn't talk about it, I think they reduced the number of tickets that they were selling and they raised the prices to offset the fact that they were selling fewer tickets. But I, for one, thought that was a great change. The other piece of Ear Scouts news that I did want to share is that we're going to be doing that coverage of Destination D23 over on Patreon, and we're going to be going live from the event. So if you'd like to catch up some of that live coverage, head on over to patreon.com/Ear Scouts. And next up, it is time for Pressed Penny for Your Thoughts, where we take a deep dive on a particular topic or question. And since this week is all about lightning lanes, we picked an extra tough lightning lane question to answer as our Pressed Penny of the week. And the question is, it comes from Berlin Terrier, and he asks, which one is better, Lightning Lane Multipass or Genie Plus? And we were actually going to answer this in the first episode, and we all agreed this was too big of a question to answer as just part of a Q&A segment because there's so much to answering that question. And I just want to start by throwing it open to the floor. Quick answer without getting into details. Which is better, Lightning Lane Multipass or Genie Plus? Jessica.
Genie Plus.
Craig.
Genie Plus.
Wow. Eric.
Genie Plus.
All right. I think I'm going to be the only one here who's going to say I actually like Lightning Lane Multipass better now. I didn't initially, but I do now. So let's start though. Jessica, why don't you start us off? What is it? Why is it that you preferred Genie Plus over Lightning Lane Multipass?
And I'm probably the opposite of you. I thought I liked Multipass better until I've used it a few times. And what I liked about Genie Plus is I could make a decision at 7 a.m. whether or not I was going to spend that money. And I could decide based on, I've been in the parks a few days. I know if it's crowded or not. I'm tired. I'm not tired. I know I want to push. I know I don't want to push. I'm going to make it to early entry. I don't need a lightning lane. I could make a decision about $50 usually that I can make that decision based on more data and more information at 7 a.m. instead of having to make it 7, 14, 3, depending on what it is. And I feel like you feel pressured to buy the lightning lanes now because they're available and everybody's buying them and you're seeing them sold out and everybody's telling you how they're selling out. Whereas then it was like, I've been in the parks for 2 days. I don't need lightning lane today. I can just go with the flow and I can buy another pair of ears because I just saved $50. That's the one thing about Genie Plus that really swayed me because I thought about this a lot. That's the thing that swayed me is that there's a lot of things about Multipass I like, and we'll probably get to those and I can chime in. But the real reason I prefer generically Genie over Multipass is that you're forcing a decision to spend for families a considerable amount of money. And that's why I like Genie Plus.
So initially I was going to say that, I think a lot of people feel pressured to book lightning lanes as soon as they can, as soon as the window opens. Because if you're staying at a resort hotel, you get that 7 days extra of booking time. And it can be a lot more than that because you can book on
Mhm.
your first day for your entire stay. Um, my advice on that would be I don't think that's something that people need to worry about as much as they think, because if you're willing to spend some time the night before your park visit or the morning of, you can usually get whatever that must get attraction was that you were aiming for 7 days out. But the other thing that you mentioned, that it could sell out. But that was the case with Genie too. But Genie never sold out usually until like lunchtime, I feel like. Craig, why did you pick Genie?
I think my main reason for just picking Genie Plus is I miss stacking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a get up and go early entry kind of person. I like, having my mornings and being able to just walk into the park in the afternoon with 5 rides reserved already. I love that. It was perfect for me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot I like about multipass as well, but that's really what triggered me to go Genie Plus. I miss it so much. And with the 2-hour unwritten rule with multipass where you can show up 2 hours late and still get on, that does help a lot. But that could go away any time.
It could. I feel like that's the solution to stacking, though. I mean, it's not as good as stacking for sure, but because you have right now an unofficial 2-hour grace period, and once your lightning lane expires, you can book another one. But here's the problem. If you didn't get to the park, all of those are going to be tier 2 attractions, right? Except for one, because
Yeah,
you can't book more than one tier 1 attraction. And that's a
exactly.
big limitation for doing the strategy that we're talking about.
I mean, just the concept of the burner attraction, which sure, most people don't even understand how that even works or why they would even do that. But yeah, that's a no for me.
The fact that the system required people to come up with the idea of a quote unquote burner attraction, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the Q&A, I think that is a sign that maybe Lightning Lane is not perfect. Uh, Eric, why'd you pick Genie Plus?
So first, because I really like you using the Genie filter on the videos.
I second
Yeah,
that.
That is the best reason, I think, hands down.
my
Well,
You
family,
should
my family all says, when is Blue Rob coming back? When do we get to see another Blue Rob video? I was like, I don't think that's coming back.
you should consider shaving your head, Rob. I'm just
I
putting that
know.
out there.
I mean, to prepare for today, I watched a bunch of the old Genie Plus videos to remind myself what Genie Plus was. And I think I commented on a couple of them. I miss Blue Rob.
and well, the second reason is that, as Craig just mentioned, I miss the ability that you had for stacking. You
Yeah,
know, and usually, with Genie Plus, like, yes, it was difficult for you to book like the difficult attractions, but like the regular ones, like you always get them like pretty easy. Now with multipass, like that has changed. Like
Hmm.
even trying to get Winnie the Pooh, like it's a challenge. Like, and the fact that multipass has to break them down in tier 1 and tier 2. Once you understand it, it's easy, you know. But like if you have no idea what's going on, like it makes a disaster on people's
yeah.
vacations.
But that was the case with Genie too. Let's be fair. This is the irony, is that when Genie was out, everyone hated Genie. Everyone said Genie was terrible and bring back X, Y, and Z from the old Fast Pass days. And then Disney kind of did. They brought back X, Y, and Z. But let's be honest, the one thing they didn't bring back was the free factor. The fact that it was free made people will be willing to forgive a lot of things. And with multipass, I think it is in some ways easier for people who've never dealt with a system like this before, because at the very least they can get those first 3 attractions. They understand that much. I do feel like, at least starting out, it's easier, I think, for guests to at least get those initial attractions booked than it maybe was before with Genie, where you had to get up at 7, and if you didn't know that, oh boy, was your day ruined because everything was gone that you really wanted to get. Um, I'm going to say why I like Lightning Lane better. I don't disagree with any of your critiques. And I think for me, the biggest one that I do miss is definitely stacking. That was great. The ability to come into the park in the afternoon and have a whole bunch of rides lined up. But the reason I like multipass better is because for most people who are coming to the parks, they don't want to crisscross back and forth. They don't want to go over to Space Mountain and ride that because that's their next lightning lane, but they can't book another one until they tap in and ride that. And oh, by the way, we need to book Big Thunder Mountain because that looks like it's almost gone. And so then we're going all the way back over to Big Thunder Mountain. It was very difficult with Genie unless you were really skilled at it, unless you really had a lot of intentional planning put into the process. It was hard to not keep going back and forth all around the park to get those big attractions done. And here's what I love about Lightning Lane Multipass, that it fixes that problem because you have those 3 slots. Now, the catch is you got to be there early, Craig. You got to unfortunately come there early to unlock, because if you don't unlock the ability to have more than one tier 1 attraction, well, then you're going to have a whole different set of problems. But once you're unlocked, having those 3 slots available to you means that, you know what, I can book Space Mountain that's all the way on the other side of the park, but I can book it for later today. And I can still have my 2 other slots that I can work with where I'm at right now or where I'm going next. And I do feel like having that freedom to kind of keep that ride in your back pocket and not worry about not getting it, but still be able to do things in the area of the park that you're at, that's a huge benefit to people.
Yeah, the one thing that almost swayed me to multipass versus Genie Plus was, I think, something you just kind of said but didn't say explicitly, which is Genie Plus, you couldn't pick the time, and in multipass you can pick the time.
Yes.
And Genie Plus, you just got the next available, which caused that crisscrossing. That is the one, like when I was sitting there writing the pros and cons, that was the huge pro of multipass, is that if you know you're going to be in Epcot from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, that's when you can plan all your rides. 11 o'clock, you're not doing next available. You're actually choosing those times. That's a huge benefit of multipass. I do like that a lot.
And as someone who experienced the paper fast passes, I've been through every iteration. When they announced multipass and that you could reserve, whatever, 3 rides ahead of time, I was excited. And then when they said the tier system's coming back, it deflated again. So that tier system is just
Yeah, I mean, everything is definitely geared towards the early riser at Disney World. Everything. I mean, early entry, the Lightning Lane system, it always benefits those who get to the park. And it's actually even more so at Disneyland on the West Coast, because they don't have, theirs is essentially Genie. If you really love Genie Plus, go to Anaheim, because they still basically have Genie, but their Genie, and this is the way it always was there. This didn't change. You couldn't book at 7 a.m. You had to wait until you physically entered the park until you could start booking lightning lanes. And so that was great for early risers, for people who came in for early entry or right when the park opened, because man, you had the whole park at your fingertips. Everything was available. There was nothing booked. So that was great for early risers. It still is. It's still the same system essentially. But if you're not an early riser, none of these systems have been good for you, I don't think.
The biggest concern that I have with multipass is the financial commitment that may not be needed. That I think there's a pressure that it's been put on people that's not real. And I wish they would listen to you, and I wish they would listen when we say you don't really need to buy them 21 days out or 14 days out or 7 days out. You don't really have to do that. Wait, let your vacation guide you. Because I've my friends have said, okay, well, we're not going to eat here or here because we spent $200 on the lightning lane check, and you do it all at once, and it's like what was a $15 to $20 expense is now a $500-$600 expense on that before you even get to it, it's rough for families. I think the way they've done it, and I think that's my number one reason. I think the technology is better with multipass. I think some of the things that it's done picking times is better with multipass Lightning Lane, but the pressure we've now put on people to spend more money that they might not need to spend is what bothers me.
Yeah.
Well, now they came with third-party apps that are full with bots, are also like taking some of those lightning lanes. Like when you're trying to grab them, like they are just gone.
Well, that happened with Genie too, though.
Yeah, it
I
did.
mean, you had that existed with Genie as well. But the other thing that's happened with multipass to that point of things that are grabbing lightning lanes, they now have Premier Pass, which that I noticed it immediately. As soon as Premier Pass started, every single thing became a little bit more difficult to book. And it made sense because they were pulling lightning lanes out of the pool because they needed to make space for the Premier Pass folks because if you're not familiar, Premier Pass is the newest flavor of lightning lane and you don't have to book anything. You just get in line, you get into the lightning lane, and you ride the attraction whenever you want. The downside to it is it's a bajillion dollars. It's crazy expensive. And the other downside is that you can only do each attraction once and it only works in one park. It doesn't work in all four like multipass. People asked for that so many times. I can tell you because we made so many Genie Plus and Lightning Lane videos, and in the comments, people are like, why don't they just do it like Universal? Why doesn't Disney just do it like Universal? And I would try to explain to people the reason why is because the way that Disney is controlling demand is by making you book things, right? They're giving you a task that you have to do to regulate demand. The way that Universal is regulating demand is by taking more of your money. That's it. That's the only regulator on demand that Universal has is they raise the price higher and higher and higher on busy days. And for me, I would much rather have a system where maybe I have to do a little bit of extra booking, but I'm not going to pay. Sometimes at Universal, it's more than your park ticket, to have that express pass. And now we have that essentially at Disney World. If you want to pay the amount of money for Premier Pass, that's kind of what you get. But I can't recommend it. I would never recommend unless you have the means and it's not really going to impact your finances that much to just spend an extra few $100s a person on your Magic Kingdom day. More power to you, but I don't think it's worth it when you can spend a fraction of that and just book the rides yourself. But
And I think the other thing that this does, and this is my overall with both Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, is that it overstates, and you guys are not going to like this statement, it overstates the importance of rides at Disney World. And I'm the first person that will tell you, I would rather go and ride 0 rides, and I have done it multiple times, than not be able to see the band on the street, to watch a parade, to see the fireworks. I think people are so uber focused on I've got to ride every ride and get every lightning lane, and that's what's the most important thing, that they've forgotten some of the sheer joy of going to Disney World has nothing to do with a lightning lane ride. And that's the other thing it's done. Just my 2 cents.
do you think Lightning Lane and Genie did that, or do you think I feel like it's always
I think
kind of
it put more emphasis on it, and because I see more people, well, I got to get every ride. I got to get every ride. I got to get all these lightning lanes. And I'm like, well, have you thought about this show or this opportunity or going here or doing that? And I think sometimes people forget that in between the spaces of the rides are some of the best experiences you're going to have. I have a picture of my mom and my daughter when my daughter was like 4, walking away from me in Magic Kingdom, and they are holding hands and talking about who knows what. That is the memory of Magic Kingdom my daughter holds in her head of that experience, and it has nothing to do with the ride, you know?
Well, I think that for us, the videos that do the best for us are the
Mhm.
videos that focus on how do I ride every ride. So I think you're right. That is people coming who are planning a trip. That is definitely something that's in people's mind. They want to know how can they, you know, to as much an extent as possible, do it all. And Lightning Lane does make it seem like the all that you need to do is that list of attractions that have lightning lanes. So yeah, I can see that. Well, it sounds like it's a pretty resounding, crushing defeat for multipass. Uh, I was the only defender of Lightning Lane multipass. Everyone else misses the Genie, and
And for different
uh,
reasons.
yeah, but for
Right.
different reasons. But now let's move on to some Lightning Lane multipass questions that we have from our viewers on YouTube and our Patreon family. Before we do that, though, I see Eric. Do you have something from our Patreon chat?
Yeah, actually, we got a question from this list, Rob. Um,
Okay.
he's asking, do you have any data on the percentage of guests that A, don't use lightning lanes, B, single pass, C, multi-pass, D, premier pass?
Like, so basically, do we have data on what percentage of guests use all the different services? No. And I can tell you, Disney doesn't really share that kind of data. And there was that big data leak where someone hacked into their, I don't remember, it was some communication platform that they had, Slack maybe. And that one of the things that came out of that was how much money they were making on, I can't remember if it was multipass at that time or Genie at that time. It was a lot of money. It was so much money that it became very clear that it was not going to go away. It's become a major profit driver for the parks. Having said that, I wish, and I'm curious. Let me know. Let us know in the comments if you disagree with this. But for me, I would much rather that they just raise the price of tickets by $4 or $5, which I know that's ticket prices is keeping some people from being able to come to the parks. But instead of giving this sense that they're kind of nickel and diming everyone after they've bought that ticket with things like multipass that people remember were free, that you used to be able to get fast pass for free. And the reason I wish they would do that is because I feel like fast pass, there was something magical about it in the fact that everyone had it. So it didn't bother you when you were in line for Peter Pan's flight and you inevitably saw what seemed like 100 families going in from the fast pass line while you're waiting there for like 4 families to go from the regular line. You're not as upset about it because you just did it. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
You just did it
Yeah.
on your last attraction. You're going to do it on your next attraction. And we all got it, for free. And it was a bonus thing. And now there's definitely a sense that you're watching a bunch of people go through that essentially paid money to go ahead of you, to cut in line, which, not knocking Disney, every single park does it. Every park. Disney was, to my knowledge, the only one that was doing it for free before. But I think Disney would be surprised by how much goodwill they would get by, maybe you have to raise the price of the ticket a little bit, but to reduce the number of things that people feel like they're being asked to add on. It's like the airlines. You buy an airline ticket and then it's like, oh, do you want a seat? Well, we need the money for your seat. Oh, and you wanted to bring bags? Oh, well, if you're going to bring bags, that's going to be some more
Mhm.
money. That's, I feel like, the sense that people are getting from a Disney vacation now. And it used to be this sense that, yes, it was a lot of money, but you got so much stuff that came with that. And I feel like a little bit that's been lost.
Yeah, no, I think that suggestion would solve a lot of problems, because if everybody had it, then maybe you would use it on 3 rides and not on 4 rides, but everybody used it on 3 different rides, and it was spread out. And then I don't think that the standby line waits wouldn't that would be great. Like if we went back to those days where everybody had it and you used it, and if you needed it, and that well, that would be utopia.
Well, that's gonna be a future episode. We're gonna have a future press penny on Fast Pass versus
Hmm.
a Lightning Lane multipass, and I think we're all gonna agree that Fast Pass was better. I think that's but to talk about the ways in which we think Fast Pass was better.
I will say, like, during the pandemic, I was actually reminded that the best system ever was no fast pass at all. But that's not going away, as you said.
So let's move on to the Q&A section. This week we're doing all questions about lightning lanes, and we take these questions from the comments on our YouTube videos. So if you'd like to get your question answered in a future video, just leave it as a comment on one of our YouTube videos, or you can join us at patreon.com/earscouts and ask your question live during an upcoming podcast. Now, we can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer every question, but we will do our best to answer as many as we can. So let's start out with a question from YouTube. Jessica, I think you have located a question from one of our comments. What do we got?
Yep, this is a fun one. So this comes from Cajun Queen 1971. And she asks, if it's just me and my husband going in September, do we really need lightning lanes? We'd rather splurge money on margaritas. Although we haven't visited in 9 years, we plan to go back every 2 to 3 years. So my answer is no, you do not need lightning lanes. I'm going next week. I'm going with technically 6 adults, my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad, John, and I. And it was my day yesterday, and I have booked 0 lightning lanes. We're going to get the single flight of passage for my dad and I. That's it. The only lightning lane we're buying. And we will be riding rides that people want to ride and eating food and having fun. And I'm pretty sure there will be a margarita, and it will be an amazing time. You do not need them. You just need to have a plan. So,
Yeah. I will add on to that. Going back to what you said earlier, I do think you can, if you decide when you get there that you really wish that you could avoid some of those lines and you wish you had a lightning lane, just add it the night before. Add it I wouldn't recommend adding it in the middle of your day, but add it for the next day, the night before, and you'll be surprised. You'll still be able to get some pretty good rides if you just kind of keep at it a little bit and just keep paying attention to what becomes available. And you should be able to get some great rides even just the night before.
I have added Lightning Lane Multipass for Haunted Mansion the day of before, just to be able to skip a 2-hour line. So just to clarify, it's not that I won't spend the money. It's that I want to choose when I want to spend the money. So you can actually get Multipass the day of and immediately skip a line if you need to. So it's still available. I would love for us to get away from people thinking they have to buy it so far in advance.
Yeah, if Disney's listening, I would love it if they would offer kind of a reduced price multi-pass late in the afternoon for folks because there's so many times where I'm like you, I'm like looking at the line at Haunted Mansion, I'm like, I really want to ride that, but am I going to spend $35 for the last 2 hours of park time? No. But if it
25.
was,
25.
I still wouldn't spend 25. But if it was like $10, for like the end of the day and they just sold out what was left, yeah, I'd do that. Yeah, good question, and I would say a very good answer. Craig,
I actually have a couple of questions here, but they tie into each other. So, first of all, from M41, they're asking, I already got my lightning lanes picked for my upcoming visit, but I know I want to modify one and it will not let me change it. Any idea why? Yeah, we know why. So when you pre-book ahead of time, you're at the 7-day or 3-day mark, or whenever you do it ahead of time, the system will not let you overlap more than maybe 5-10 minutes.
it's kind of buggy. Sometimes
yeah.
it lets you overlap 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes it won't even let you come close to overlapping. I don't really understand its logic sometimes.
Yeah. And the big thing is, I think people forget, is it also includes dining. So if you have made a reservation, it's going to block out at least an hour. I'm not sure what algorithm they use to decide like how long that's going to be, a meal's going to take. But So yeah, unfortunately you can't, but that kind of leads into our next question, where Chubby Monkey asks, can you clarify when we can start to overlap our lightning lane times to get tighter windows? At the pre-booking stage, we are limited to one each hour, which we just talked about. So um, short answer on that is the stroke of midnight on your park day. So as soon as midnight hits on that day that you've got your multi-pass, you can start overlapping with no problems.
Am I the only one here who wakes up at midnight or stays awake until midnight to adjust lightning lanes?
I don't stay up till midnight, but I naturally get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning because of my job. So I would get up at, if I had lightning lanes, 4:30 or 5 and start overlapping.
Get as many things as you can get overlapped in the morning, because until you use those lightning lanes or they expire, you can't book anything else in that slot. So if you have one lightning lane scheduled every hour of your morning, you can condense those, right? And get potentially all three of them done in the first hour. And then you're going to get a lot more, things booked in that precious morning time when it's easier to book.
Yeah, and that's where the 2 hours at the end of your lightning lane comes in very handy.
Yeah. So our next one is a question that we get all the time. This is one of the most common questions, and it comes from WFA33844, who I'm pretty sure is either a stormtrooper or a droid. And they ask, does it matter that we are a party of 12 when trying to get available lightning lanes? So they're bringing the whole crew. They've got BB-8 and C-3PO and TK-421. They're all coming. And when that happens, it does, in our experience, get a lot harder to book certain attractions. If you Google this, you're going to find so many people online that will tell you it's the same. It doesn't matter how many people in your party, you're going to have the same experience booking lightning lanes. And I think the reason for that is because a long time ago, all of the different YouTube channels said that was true. And it seemed like it should be true, right? Because you select the time first and then you choose your party. So how could it know when it was giving you that time, how many people were in your party? How could that affect things? It seems logical that the number of your party doesn't affect it. But guess what? Once you put in how many people are in your party, surprise, surprise, that lightning lane is then gone. Someone else has already grabbed it, or it never really existed for a party of your size. The way that we tested this, we did videos back when it was Genie. Now, to be fair, we haven't yet done a video where we've tested this with multipass, but just anecdotally talking to people, I don't think this has changed. We will do another video soon, though. We're going to do another large party lightning lane video. But what we found, this is how we tested it. We had one group that was set with a party of 4 or less, and we had another group that was set with a larger party, and we would just consistently refresh both phones at the same exact moment, and it was dramatic. It was repeated, it was consistent. It wasn't something that was just a fluke that maybe one refreshed a little bit faster than the other. On rides that are really popular. So we're talking things like, at Magic Kingdom, it would be Tiana's Bayou Adventure right now. It would probably be Peter Pan's Flight, Jungle Cruise. On those kinds of rides, once you got above a party of 4, it became much more difficult to get quicker return times, or even in some cases to get a lightning lane at all. So, for the other rides, though, honestly, things like, It's a Small World and Dumbo and the Barnstormer, really, most of the attractions, we didn't actually see a significant difference. My theory, based on our experience, is I think there must be 2 buckets of lightning lanes. There's a bucket that's reserved for smaller parties, and they have more plentiful lightning lanes because they're not going to take up as much space on attractions. And then I think there's a different bucket for larger parties, because it didn't matter how much we added to that second party. It seemed to stay the same in terms of what they were getting offered. 5 is that magic number the last time we tested it, where things get a lot more tough. But yeah, we will probably do a new video hopefully during the holidays, because I think that's the best time to do it because it's so busy and you can really see the difference. You kind of need there to be a busy day so that you can really see how much it impacts it. But we'll try to do that this holiday season.
So we've had a lot of multi-pass questions, but we've got a single pass lightning lane question from Gavin Livingstone. And he asks, he's noticed that a lot of the single pass lightning lanes have been selling out quickly. Do you know when they come back at any point? And if so, what is the best time to check for them? So I think there's kind of two parts to this answer, in my opinion. The first part is they do come back. Most of them come back. Some of them, are more difficult than the others. When I really, really want to know, there's a website called thrillData.com, and they actually have bar charts and graphs and graphics of the sellout times and the times that the lightning lanes come back for your week, for the week before. If you're a data person, this changes week to week. It changes crowd to crowd. So if you're a data person and this is something you really want to know, I would go to thrillData.com. I would check their matrix, and they'll tell you, okay, at 3:15 is when we usually see a new drop. At 11:15 is when we usually see a new drop, and they actually have that data. But I find 11:15 and 3:15 are the times that I've kind of found them, but it's usually when people are changing their mind.
So I'm going to throw out in addition to that's going to be helpful actually for the next question that I've got coming up after this one. So it's going to kind of tie these two together. One thing that you can do if you're looking for a ride to come back that's out of lightning lanes, especially single pass, use the free Disney Genie service. So you go to basically the My Day section and you'll see the little genie there and you tap on it and it's going to ask you questions about what you're interested in doing in the parks. And whatever rides you tell it that you're interested in, it pins those to the top of your view whenever you're booking lightning lanes. So if you really, really want to get a single pass lightning lane, say it's Rise of the Resistance you really want, you can select that with the Genie, and every time you go to book a lightning lane or just to look to see what's available, Rise will be pinned there at the top of your view, and you'll see right away if it comes back. So actually, that's gonna tie us directly into this next question, and I love this one because this is like an advanced lightning lane question. This is AP level lightning lane.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Robinson asks, with the changes to lightning lane, does it still make sense to book a placeholder lightning lane and try to modify that into the one you want, or should you book the new ride from scratch? Okay, I'm going to break that down into non-lightning lane nerd English because probably some people are like, what does that even mean? So with lightning lane, when you initially book an attraction, it's going to ask you at that stage, like we said before, how many people are in your party. And in that amount of time that it takes for you to establish your party, what will often happen is that lightning lane that you were aiming for is already gone. Someone else has taken it. But when you modify a lightning lane, so let's say you've booked it, let's say you booked It's a Small World because you were really wanting Peter Pan's Flight right across the street from It's a Small World, but you couldn't get Peter Pan's Flight. So you book It's a Small World. You're going to then put in your party for It's a Small World. And then when you modify that It's a Small World lightning lane and try to turn it into Peter Pan's Flight, it's going to use the party you already have selected as a default. It's not going to ask you to select a party. And that split second difference, it's really ends up being probably a second or two of difference, is the difference between getting that tough to grab lightning lane or missing out on it. Now, his question was, with the changes made to lightning lane, should you still do that? The change that was made is now fixed. There was a change where you could no longer pin attractions to the top of your view when you were modifying a lightning lane. So that thing I was just telling you about, how you want to pin the rides that you're most interested in to the top of your view, that's super helpful, right? Because as soon as you refresh your view, you want to see those rides right away. So you can tap in quickly and grab a good time if it shows up. Well, for a while there, that was broken. and it didn't pin. And that was why it sometimes didn't make sense to use this modify method, but now it does. Now, having said that, it's the best case scenario is to have that ride already booked and modify it just into a better time, because in that case, that ride is by default pinned to the top of your view when you modify. So that's the easiest way of all, is to just book a time for the ride you're aiming for that you don't really want and modify it into an earlier time. So that is the AP lightning lane question of the session, and I hope that answer was helpful to a lot of you who are planning a lightning lane trip. What you got for us next, Craig?
I have a timely question here from EP, the GF Papa. And as Jessica said in the last episode, I'm so intrigued by some of these screen names. Like, I really wish y'all would like explain some of them in the comments. But anyway, so they're asking, does
GF
lightning
Papa, is he gluten free? Do we think that's what that is?
That's a good one.
Maybe.
Could be.
All right.
We could do a whole episode of speculating.
We could do a whole
on
episode guessing what
names.
EP the GF means. But
Or
I
any
think
of
that might
them.
not be good.
So anyway, does Lightning Lane work at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party? And the short answer is no, it doesn't. It ends at the park closing for day guests. So traditionally, like, parties start at 7. Day guests their day is over at 6. So that's usually when Lightning Lane will stop. Now you can kind of use that advantage too, that especially that 6 to 7 hour if you're in the park already and you're staying for the party. Because first of all, Lightning Lane is done, so you don't have to worry about Lightning Lane people getting mixed in, and all the day guests can't get in line, only party guests. So that's like one of my tips is, like, between 6 and 7, try to get on some of those harder to get rides.
Does DAS work at the parties? It does, doesn't it? The DAS
Yes.
service. So even though Lightning Lane doesn't work, you may see people going through the Lightning Lane lines. Those are the DAS people that need that for special services. Some people get confused when they see that. So that's why people may be in the Lightning Lane lines. If that's what caused the question, is DAS is still working.
Right. Disability Access Service. Is
Mhm.
that? Yeah. Yes. And that's
Yeah,
a really
good
good
point.
point. Yeah.
Mhm. And like the other thing, like, why should you even get Lightning Lane during a party day? It's usually a lot lighter during the day because it's only open till 6. So usually you can get away without it if you plan on being in the park during the day. So, and I'm assuming this works. It's the same for Christmas. I haven't experienced that personally, but I just thought of it. I just assume it's the same.
It is. All of the after hours events, even if you go for after hours, like during the non-holiday season, Lightning Lane does not work, because the idea is they want the lines to move very quickly. And the thing that slows down lines more than anything else is the Lightning Lane. So they turn off Lightning Lanes for those parties and events.
Mhm.
The other thing, what you said though about on party days, the park that's having the party is usually kind of dead, because a lot of people don't want to go to the park that day, because especially if they don't have Park Hopper, they don't want their park day to end so early. But to that same end, some people love Lightning Lane on party days because it's so easy to book everything. I mean, if you're stressed about having to book stuff, if that's the part of Lightning Lane that you're most anxious about, it's not a bad idea necessarily to get Lightning Lane on a party day, especially as one of your first days, if you can do that, because it's going to give you kind of Lightning Lane on training wheels. It's a really easy comparatively to book stuff.
I just wanted to add, I know we're talking about lightning lanes, but like if people are trying to book very hard to book restaurants like Cinderella's Royal Table, or like if they want to book like for the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, party days are a very good option. Just they usually have walk up availability, so that's another perk that you get from those.
Yeah, party days are great. Jessica, what's our next question?
Well, I've got one for people that are in my camp, which is the early risers. Michelle Myers asks, when you book a burner attraction like Mickey's PhilharMagic, do you then stay and watch the show? Or are you just doing the tap in to unlock the lightning lanes? So I think there's, in general, if you're asking me, I always stay and watch the show. I do. But the answer to the question is you don't have to. The cast members will not require you to stay. There are some attractions, and I was trying in my head to remember, that have 2 tap points. These are typically not your burner attractions, though. Um,
Right.
I will say Small World, which is not a burner attraction, says the person who has actually rope dropped Small World that Rob has made fun of me for. I have rope dropped Small World. It has 2 tap points. So that's one that if you decided that Small World would be your burner attraction, you would need to, and when I say 2 tap points, you tap in when you first enter the queue, and then before you merge, there's a second place that you have to put your magic band before it makes the burner attraction go away and you can continue to book. So before I walk away from that cast member, I would make sure that there's not a second tap point. That's the one thing I would do. But technically you don't have to, but then you can never use the lightning lane that day for that attraction. You've used it. It's as if you've used it. So if you wanted to see PhilharMagic, which is a great show, and you already had to use a lightning lane, you might as well watch the show, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in the sense that I feel guilty. I really
Yeah.
do. I feel guilty when I tap in. Before we get into this, I do think we should clarify to folks who may not know what we mean by a burner attraction.
Yeah, sorry.
So with the new lightning lane system, as we mentioned earlier, until you physically tap in at some ride, any ride, you're limited to only one tier 1 attraction at a time, and you're limited to having all of your attractions be in the same park. So let's say you had a park hopper ticket and you wanted to start your day in Magic Kingdom and then go to Hollywood Studios. You cannot book anything for Hollywood Studios until you unlock, until you tap in at your first attraction. So what a lot of people will do, they want to unlock as quickly as they possibly can, and they'll book a burner attraction. They'll book a ride that is not popular, or a show that's not popular, because it's easy for them to get a lightning lane right as soon as the park opens or close to it, and they can just go and tap in and unlock themselves. I'm with you though. I feel guilty when I do it. I have done it. And I'll tell you, this is my rule. This is how I decide if I'm going to do it. Number one, is this an attraction that is going to have a walk up? I'm going to be able to walk right in at any point during the day and not have a wait. And for example, at Epcot, there's the Magic Eye Theater, where the Disney Shorts Festival is up there. I have been there on the busiest of busy park days. There's never a wait. There's never a wait for that. So if that's your burner attraction, I would never feel guilty because it's always like you have a lightning lane there. And I'm sure they're so used to it, they're not going to really care that you're using that as a burner. The other time when I will always skip the burner attraction, sometimes I want to unlock and then I want to go and ride. For example, we did a video recently. We used PhilharMagic as our burner attraction, and then we immediately went and rode Jungle Cruise, not using Lightning Lane, but because that meant we didn't have to book the Lightning Lane for Jungle Cruise, right? We got a walk on for that because it was so early. That's a moment when I'm not going to go to that burner attraction because then I would have lost the short wait at Jungle Cruise. Or if I have another attraction of Lightning Lane that I want to use so that I can free up another Lightning Lane, those are times when it overrides that guilt feeling. I don't think anyone should skip PhilharMagic, especially if you've not seen it. It's a great show. I don't think you should skip the Disney short films if you've never seen them. They're great, but I don't think it's necessarily something you need to do first thing in the morning when the lines are short. But I do have an Epcot specific question. Elaine Hill asks, how does Test Track affect Lightning Lane availability at Epcot? Is Frozen Ever After maybe easier to get? And I have actually been in Epcot several times recently using lightning lanes or looking at lightning lanes, and I have been shocked at how much easier Frozen Ever After and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure have gotten to book. Now, to be fair, these have not been the busiest of days, so this may be skewed a little bit by the fact that the crowds aren't at peak levels, but normally, even on slow days, it would have been really hard to get a good time for Frozen or Remy in the middle of the day. And that's not been the case recently. So I do think having lots of folks going to Test Track is reducing the demand a little bit at those other top tier attractions there, which is great. Craig, what do you got for us?
Okay, I have a question from JDWS10Y. It's like another Star Wars droid. But the question is, wait, you can buy Lightning Lane for Animal Kingdom and then use it in the other parks? And the reason they're asking that is because if you're not familiar with MultiPass, each park is a different price per day, and it's dynamic. It changes every day. But Lightning Lane or MultiPass for Animal Kingdom is always the cheapest. But the answer is yes, absolutely, you can. If you have a park hopper ticket, you can buy it, pay for the cheaper MultiPass in Animal Kingdom, and then hop over to Magic Kingdom, as long as you have a ticket with park hopping. But there are a few caveats with this. First of all, if you buy MultiPass for Animal Kingdom, you can only pre-reserve things for Animal Kingdom. So once you get into Animal Kingdom, you tap into that first one, then you can start booking for all the 3 other parks, whatever you feel like doing. So, but yeah, it's a great little tip, a great little cost saving thing too.
And if you're an early morning person, Animal Kingdom is always an hour earlier, and you can always
that
go
as well.
early, and it's great. So,
Yep, I think that is the best. If you're an early riser and you love Animal Kingdom, which I'm only an early riser when it's a Disney park day. On normal days, I'm
That's
not
true.
an
We
early
all are.
riser. But on Disney days, I tend to be an early riser, and I love starting my day at Animal Kingdom. It's my favorite park. I love being there, and it's an hour early, so if you unlock, you're starting to be able to book at all those other parks before even the folks who are starting in that park are able to book their second attraction because it isn't even open yet.
mhm.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have left for questions this week. But if you still have questions, let us know in the comments on one of our Ear Scouts videos on YouTube, or join us live at patreon.com/Ear Scouts. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can hear the answer if we're able to include it. Finally, before we go, we have one last segment that we like to call Happy Thoughts. This is just a fun little thing that we'd like to share with all of you before we sign off. It's like an after dinner mint, if you will. Craig, why don't you start us off this week? What is your happy thought?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I was at Cedar Point this weekend, and they have a brand new coaster called Simon's Curse, and I'd never ridden it. Took advantage of early entry and managed to only wait like 20 minutes to get on it. Again, since it's such a new coaster, and where you sit is about as important, if not more, than Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not going to go into how this roller coaster works and why, but we got up to the front, and so we got to choose which row we went to. So the ride op said, well, where do you want to sit? And I was like, I've never been on this ride. You tell me. He puts us in row 1. I'm like, okay, great. So then the next people from row 2 come in, and it's a younger couple, and the woman looks at me and goes, is row 1 your favorite way to sit in? I'm like, I don't know. I've never done it before. Is it yours? And she said, yes. And I said, oh, well, here, take it. We'll probably be more comfortable in the second row. It's our first time. The first row looks pretty scary. So we switched, and she was just thrilled. And then I asked her, like, oh, well, why do you like it so much? She's like, oh, because I'm so scared that I like being able to see where I'm going. And I thought she was like being Miss Brave, when you sit in the scary front row. And no, it's just, it made her feel more comfortable. But anyway, my happy thought is when I'm at the park, the thing that makes me happiest is being able to make other people's days a little better, which I think is what we all do here at Ear Scouts. We're here to help make people have more magical vacations. And so I encourage that. I encourage you to, if you're in a park or wherever, just give up something that you were going to do to make someone else's day a little better, and let us know. I love hearing comments about that. That's my happy thought. Do something nice for someone else in a park.
Love that. Jessica, what is your happy thought this week?
Well, there are two parts of the Disney fandom that I have not gotten into, and that is Disney Cruise Line and Run Disney. So this Christmas, we're going to be checking off our very first Run Disney event. I was able to register for the 12 Ks of Christmas, the Muppet themed Christmas virtual run. I will say the fact that it was a virtual run themed to Muppets is what kind of pushed me over the top. But I'm super excited. It'll be our first, we're finally signing up for a Run Disney event. Our goal is to get to a 5 and 10K at a park, but we're going to start small with these 4Ks. And I'm super excited. It's something that I've always wanted to do since I started going to Disney. One of the things that I did and both my daughters did is we marched, our marching bands marched in Magic Kingdom. I did it when I was in high school. They did it when they were in high school, and marching through Disney World was really cool. And I think doing a 5K or 10K would be cool. So I'm excited. I'm dipping my toe in, and I have a feeling this is going to cost me a lot more money. And it's a good thing I don't need lightning lanes, I guess.
What is a virtual run?
So basically, it is an honor system. You do, in this case, you do 3 4Ks, so 12Ks. You put your times in during a certain time period. It's open from December 1st to, I think it might be December 31st or it might be December 25th. You have that much time to do and log 3 4Ks. So you in the website and say that you've done them, put your time in, and then you get a medal sent to you. And it's a lot less pressure than having the balloon ladies chase me off the track. So
Awesome. Eric, what is your happy thought this week?
So I just find out like they brought new merchandise of Coco, and that made me very very excited. Like I saw like the ears and the hoodies, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to see them in person.
Awesome. I love Coco, and I obviously love ears, so I will be excited to see those as well. So my happy thought this week is that if you were a Disney Channel watcher back in the day, there was a show called Imagineer That, and the Imagineering YouTube channel has brought Imagineer That back. I think today was the first episode, and if you watch it, first off, there's a character called Tom Morrow 2. I think Tom Morrow 2.0, is that his name? But he's a little robotic character. And what's cool about this first episode is you do get a little bit of a glimpse at the new tropical Americas that they're building at Animal Kingdom. And you get a little bit of a glimpse of what looks like it's going to be maybe part of the Coco attraction in Anaheim at California Adventure. So I'm really excited for this new series on YouTube, and it's free to watch on YouTube. So go check it out. And that is all the happy thoughts we have time for, but we will be back with a new episode every other week. So be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until then, don't forget to think happy thoughts, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.